Hello and welcome back to another episode of Saturday Night Later, the show where sketch teachers and writers break down SNL sketches so we can learn about the structure that goes into writing sketch comedy. I'm your host, Marina Tempelsman, the writer of the upcoming book, Unusual Things, a guide to sketch comedy for writers, fans, and everyone else. And I'm joined by my amazing co-host and author of the Substack, My Comedy Fantasy, Madalyn Baldanzi.
Hello. Hi, Marina.
Hello, thank you for being here. And with us today is a very special guest. You've seen her work at the UCB on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, on The Rundown with Robin Thede, and Impractical Jokers as well. I am talking, of course, about the amazing Caitlin Bitzegaio. Yay!
Hi.
Caitlin. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh
I'm so
my gosh.
excited.
I'm so pumped that you are here. It is so great to have you here. So this is we've been doing these episodes to kind of talk about sketch comedy because, as anyone who's taken a sketch class knows, your teacher always tells you to go see sketch shows. There aren't that many sketch shows that you can have in common with like a whole bunch of people around the world to learn from and deconstruct and dissect. Saturday Night Live happens to be one of those shows that we can all see and talk about and learn from. So that was sort of the impetus for the show, having some sort of like common language where we can learn about it, while I'm also writing this book about sketch comedy because there really aren't craft books about sketch comedy out there. So that's what I've been working on, and that's what we've been doing on these episodes. So today I'm so excited. We're going to be talking about the second ever episode of SNL UK. So before we like jump into the specific sketches, I'd love to just do a quick like temperature check. What did you guys think about this episode? And also, Caitlin, had you seen the previous SNL UK? Well, I'm curious to hear general experience.
I've seen these two episodes, the Tina Fey and Jamie Dornan episodes. There was some other iteration of it, maybe. I haven't seen that, if there was. I don't know. I don't know how I'm feeling about it yet, to be honest. I'm excited that it exists at all. It was interesting. I watched your episode last week with Shim, and he obviously had some cultural issues with it. But then it's funny because to me, as a non-British person, it comes off very British. Like, there's a guy named George Fouracres. Like, that's something we are supposed to believe is real. Like, so I would like to only see it get more like in its own skin and away from the sort of normal SNL trappings, because I don't know if it needs them. I mean, it's a cool opportunity to have you have this show that's on for 50 years and then you get to decide what actually works.
Totally.
So it's an interesting challenge.
Absolutely. I think I that resonates for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Madalyn, how about you? What were your thoughts?
This week I feel like, okay, we're settling into it, and I was comforted. I think I'm comforted by this whole project. I do think there's a lot of room for it to grow into its own thing, and I don't think we're going to see that happen this year necessarily. Like I think that'll take a while to evolve. But the way it makes me think is this. So if you have a live sketch show, there's kind of two kinds of ways it can happen. And one is that like you work on it, something that you thought of that you're excited about, and you work on it for a while and you perfect it, and then you find a place to do that show live. And there is like a good chance that could be amazing, that could be an excellent comedy show, right? Because you've like really worked on it and perfected it into your vision. And then there's this other kind of live comedy show, which I think the three of us have spent a lot of time doing. For me, mainly Mon Night and Sketch Cram, where you have a time slot and you have to put up a show at that time. And you have a set amount of time to do it in, and you have to do it with people you were assigned to do it with. And the quality of that show is always, without fail, going to be, there's one really great thing, a couple fine things, and some real stinkers. And whatever SNL UK becomes, it will always have that in common with American SNL, which also has that in common with Sketchcram, with Mon Night. And so I just think there's, I don't know, to me, I'm taking away a positive of like, there's some sort of like beauty in it about how like, if you just have a certain amount of time to make things, that's the ratio of hits.
I love that way of putting it. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a student once, she went to Mod Night and I asked her how was Mod Night, and she goes, amazing. There were wigs, there was singing. And I'm like, sometimes you just have to remember, you're right. There were wigs and singing.
Yeah. I love that. I love that way of looking at it too. Yeah, there's all sorts of different takeaways that one can have from it, but I do think and I think that's part of why I'm also feeling excited that this project it seems like it's helpful for people who are learning sketch, even though Saturday Night Live is obviously a big institution and like sketch shows in underground basements are like a very different size, scale, budget, some might say. It still applies. A lot of the lessons still apply. And anyway, I'm very excited to chat about this one. So let's just jump in without further ado. Yeah, shall we jump into the cold open? This is MI5 meeting where we learn Prince Andrew everything that's happening with Prince Andrew in the Epstein files has been a secret covert plan to make his brother look good.
It had a game. Look, Marina just explained the game.
Yep, a clear game.
It did.
Super clear structure.
It's also very stylistically different than something they would do in the US version, because they wouldn't really do like sort of like a alternative history fantasy sketch.
Yes.
You wouldn't see that typically.
That's like in a political sense. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's right. And I think that at first when the sketch started, I was like, oh, are they trying to have, before I understood what was going on, I was like, oh, they're treating like Prince Andrew as a voice of reason. And I was like, oh no, this is like a fun fantasy thing. And kind of at the heart of all of this is like the idea that, well, there's two kind of things at play here, right? There's the idea that the stuff that Prince Andrew has done is so evil that it feels like it must have been like some plot all along, right? That's sort of at the heart of it. And but the butt of the sketch is really that like King Charles is so like blech, and the royal family is so blech that like it all has to have been a plot somehow. Like it all has to have been masterminded. In an interesting way, we're going to talk about the Pret musical sketch later. It's a similar way that idea is kind of born, like something that feels so either irksome or terrible that you are imagining a sort of alternate way that it came to be. Totally different sketches, but I think just keep that in mind as like interesting parallels going on. But yeah, so what did you guys think about this one? Madalyn, you mentioned had a clear game going on. What popped out to you guys about this one?
I was wondering if maybe we should see Charles, like, because but then I couldn't decide if I liked that idea or not. But like, it just wasn't, if that's the reason, because Charles is going to be king and he's so off-putting, I feel like we need to see him being off-putting. But then I also realized I don't really know what Prince Andrew's like. Like, if that was a great impression of him, I have no idea. So that to a British audience, maybe they do. I don't know. I definitely knew when Fergie came on. I was like, I'm all about this.
I had such a similar reaction. I was like, I don't really know what to say because I don't know him, but I did like him City's impression a lot. That felt like a fun way to expand the
Fergie
world.
Is a big character, so she's someone you can parody. I don't know if Andrew is or not. I don't really know. I did like the joke about how they're working on Prince William's looks.
Yes.
Because that is like my Roman Empire is how hot he used to be and what happened. I name drop. Iowa Debris was a writer's assistant in a writer's room that I worked in. And she's Gen Z, much younger than me. And I took this could have been why the show was canceled, because I took time out of our day to make sure that she knew how hot Prince William used to be. I was just like, okay, well, we need because she didn't know that. That's been lost. That's been
incredible. Lost to the archives. No longer.
And I was like, well,
no longer.
We're getting the show canceled, but we're going to be looking at some pics.
Well, I will clearly be doing some research of my own after this. But yeah, I think that I thought that this was like, at first I was like a little like, what are they doing with this voice of reason version of Prince Charles? But then I think that they did a really, I think that the premise of the sketch underscores actually sort of like the right point of view on that character. And again, like, like a lot of some of the references were lost on me, but there was really active, active heightening, bringing in characters. And I think that it was a nice, creative, clear setup of something that could have felt basic.
And maybe like it's a good example to compare to some of the American cold opens, like when Fergie comes on, because you're bringing in another person to have an impression of, but it's on the same idea you started with.
Yes.
US
Yes.
SNL,
Right.
like you can add impressions and keep it on game. It is possible.
Yes. Really plugging it into the scene that you've set up and using it makes it feel more satisfying, much more satisfying. Awesome. Anything else you want to see about that cold open, or shall we move on to next? All right, let's quickly touch on the monologue. Madalyn, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about this monologue. Tell me. I just want to hear your thoughts on it. There's like a hint of a sketch, kind of an oddly proportioned sketch in there.
First of all, SNL UK seems to have like a lot of interest in Ireland. Although I guess he's from Northern Ireland, right? So
yes, he is. Yeah.
But the potato thing kind of like threw me. But I just thought that was so very small. And I like, and if it actually was real, I did think it was so charming, but I don't think this felt more British to me, because I was like, it was so small. I think the like tininess of the actual specific, not literally, just like it was so not broad or flashy. It was just like one really weird thing. That he has rocks that look like potatoes, and he worked hard to find them. I liked how weird it was. It wasn't a lot, but it made me chuckle out loud.
And then Chris O'Dowd being there.
What?
Yeah, I think they're still trying to figure out what the deal is with having celebrities present. I think that's something that I'm curious to see how they evolve or discontinue over time.
Am I crazy? Is this a Mandela effect thing? In the US, when celebrities are in the audience for the monologue, don't they always stand when they say their lines?
Not always.
Some reason them just sitting there is so strange to
I
me.
do think that it was a wider shot for sure. I think that maybe that's what you're responding to. It was kind of a wide shot where you could see like a lot of audience members along with him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe it does like give the effect that he actually is just there, which is obviously not true, but it maybe, I don't know. He just isn't, I don't know if he's a bigger star in the UK. Like I know who he is, but just the level of celebrity didn't really quite make sense to me.
That felt very specific to that made it feel more like SNL UK to me. I was like, no one would care about this at all.
Yeah.
No one would.
Well, how little they do with like the host celebrity in both the first two episodes is really interesting. Like there's no way Jamie Dornan hosts SNL New York and they don't do a Christian Grey sketch. There's not a world where they don't do that.
Yeah.
And that like you'd forget who he was if you didn't.
I have to admit, I did not know who he was as I was watching it. And then I was like,
I only knew him as Christian Grey. I was like, oh, he's been in these movies? Didn't know.
I was like, The Fall and Belfast. I haven't seen either of them.
The Fall, yeah. I'm a Gillian Anderson completist, so I have seen The Fall. That's where I first knew of him. But none of that, like nothing from his work is in this show, which is fine. I guess I don't care. It's just interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting. I think this is something that Shem had touched on a little bit, like the relationship to celebrities, the celebrity of it all is something that is different there. And I am very curious to see what happens.
Well, that was noticeable to me just in the promo for the Tina Fey episode. They basically had a sketchy premise where she was like Mary Poppins. I don't know if you saw that promo. It wasn't like a full sketch, nor should a promo really be, but it had much more of a comedic premise than you would ever see for regular SNL promos are just, hi, I'm a celebrity and celebrity. One joke.
Yeah, totally.
And like, that's it. And I guess that's because they also don't have to explain to us what the show is.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah. I did want to shout out just like one specific that I really loved. I really love the line, if I cared less, I'd have more, about the potatoes.
Loved that.
That was great. I think that the only like oddness to me about this monologue was just, I think that the audience felt very quiet to me. I think, Madalyn, what you were saying about it being kind of like a small idea that you wanted to listen for felt like, oh, I wonder, is this a question of like, this is not the right kind of thing to do as a monologue for a live sketch show now, where people are more used to just like internalizing like, this is funny without laughing out loud, maybe? Or is this like a celebrity different thing? Is it? I don't know.
I think there's something Dornan was not a confident enough performer to fully sell it. Yes. I think he was a little nervous. I think that was the quiet. He was tentative, and so the audience was tentative.
I think that's probably right. They didn't want to insult his beautiful rock collection. They really looked like potatoes. It was impressive. All right, shall we move on to sketch number 1? All right, so this was
Yes.
the musical sketch. The British, actually, sorry, there were two, but this was the pre-taped one.
There were.
The British themed pub song,
Mhm.
which has been stuck in my head today. Thoughts on this one? What jumped out to you guys?
I liked this one. It had a very clear game. It got to it fast enough. I've
Yeah,
been in the Bristol airport, and that vibe is just like that.
That's funny.
I think the only thing, as the sketch went on, I did think there were some great heightenings, right? Like the girl who was sad because she'd spent a year on Duolingo and wasn't
yes,
using it is a
yes,
great, like, A to B, right? That's like a
yeah.
really good, fun way to heighten that. I just felt like it was this thing where we spent so long in the pub, we forgot we were in Spain. Like, I wish there were
Oh,
just a
interesting.
couple more visual reminders, almost to set up the punchlines, like, we're in Spain in the Irish pub. I think that would have just like, or the
Yes,
English pub would have let it hit harder the longer it went on.
yes, that checks out to me.
I think it was like I think it was good. It wasn't great for me because if this was like a student sketch, like a student that's in, let's say, Sketch 301 or higher, or like a mod writer, I would encourage them to try to have be on your character's side a little more. It felt like these characters are getting made fun of versus exploring the logic of it. Because even though the behavior of going to your country's themed restaurant in another country is silly, we all understand why it's silly. But we also all understand why you do it. Like,
Yeah,
it's like, I've been fighting with my kids about everything else all day. We're not going to fight about this. I'm going here. I'm tired from walking around. I don't want to try new
mm,
food. Like, I think those are still silly, and I like to be on my character's sides, and I think sometimes newer writers are fearful of that because it's like, well, then it's not a comedic premise anymore. But I don't agree. I feel like they could have just stretched the logic a little more, and I think it could have been great. I don't think the
mm.
Irish pub move at the end that was like completely lateral. I
Yeah,
guess
that
it
was.
was just because he was there.
Yeah, I think
It's not.
so too. Yeah, I really love the way you put that of getting in your character side because I do think there is, yeah, like I think that, and I think your point about it being something a newer sketch writer can be reminded of is really on point as well because I think that there is a fear that like they won't know that I don't think this, right? So I have to make sure
Yeah.
that, right? And I think that it was a
Yes.
really clearly set up sketch premise, whatever. So I do think you're right that there could be a little bit more specificity. And I think Madalyn, I think also what you were saying as well of like peeking, like popping out of the pub a little bit makes sense because I do think that there was the lines. I watched it a second time earlier today, and I was like, the lyrics are great. Like it's like fun. It's very funny. Like and like great rhymes, all that stuff. But like you sort of have to listen pretty carefully for it. And when your specifics are for especially for a musical sketch, if the specific lyrics are what's sort of driving all of the new exploration, you can just sometimes run out of a little bit of steam or it can kind of blur
Hmm.
together. So having a little bit more variation, I think, is a good thing to bear in mind. I thought this was pretty fun and I'm sorry, I thought it was really fun and pretty successful. And I appreciated it even more on a second watch. Yeah. Other thoughts for this one or great. Okay, awesome. Let's move on to sketch number 2. Okay, so this this was the hostage sketch. I truly loved this one. I have to say, I absolutely loved this sketch. It was one of my favorites. Basically, a hostage video where it's where the hostage is in a situationship, and so they can't figure out how to describe her relationship in the video, hostage video. I was delighted by this, but I want to step back first and hear what you guys thought about this one.
I like the premise a lot. I thought I feel like we lost the danger so quickly
Mm.
that the stakes didn't it just felt like they were two best friends talking and not the kidnapper and the kidnappee.
Yes, I
So that was sort of
completely
my issue.
agree. I when so if someone just like taking the performance out of it on paper, if someone brought this into a 301, I would be like, "Yes, great. This is good. Like this is good. We can make some tweaks. Fantastic. This is ready for the show. We don't have to worry about you." I would love it. So it's just really clear, really solid premise, maybe not the most mind-blowing original thing. But then what kind of made it and broke it for me, I thought, I'm not sure who the actor was playing the girl, but her performance was so grounded. And just so underplayed. I thought that took it from like that elevated it really high. But then Jamie Dornan
Yeah.
played it so broad.
Yes,
And
I
I
agree.
think if he had managed or had been more confident to match her energy and to play kidnapper in a more grounded way and like let him be kind of like a grisly kidnapper more, or even like a, I don't know, like a like lower middle class kidnapper more, even like you could, if you made him more specific and grounded like she was, it would have really been fantastic.
I completely agree with that. I thought that Jamie Dornan's this was the where I was like, oh, I wonder if I'm not sure that he's like the strongest comedic actor, like like, or at least in the context of sketch. Like I completely agree with that. I just thought her performance was so delightful, and the writing of her character was so great. Like I just love the line, like, I'm not an extrovert like everyone thinks, is so funny set against that context. And I think you're right though, that I do think that we lost, aside from the visual of the base reality, which you get when you are on SNL, but you don't get if you're in like a basement theater. Aside from that backdrop contrast, you're right that we did kind of lose the situation. So I do think you're right that there could have been a little bit more variety and more beats using that setting as a jumping off
Right.
point. Yeah.
I wonder if it just could have been better explained to him. Like the joke of this is using a kidnapping to discover our relationship status. It's not adult man like is dealing with younger women issues. Cause I think that's he thought like kind of doing a teen girl voice was like part, but it's like that's not really part of it. I also kind of would have liked if it was a group of kidnappers and maybe they each could have had a slightly different take
Sure, yeah.
on where this relationship is going. Like just being like, dump him. Like, if we don't kill you, you have to dump this man.
Yeah.
But also, I do think because Jamie Dornan is my age, and I feel like the dating of the Gen Z, like the labels and stuff, it is a fascinating world. I feel like that could have been exploited. You know what? They have this thing where they're exclusive, but they're not boyfriend and girlfriend. What does that mean? What is it?
I mean, I would have loved to hear that character ask about that. Yeah, I think
I don't get it. That to me, I feel like that's your boyfriend.
I think there is a lot of like grounded. I think, as you were saying, Madalyn, I think there's a lot of like kind of groundedness to that performance that could have teased out more fun. I really loved a couple of moves that I really loved. When she said, like, do you think you could ask him where his head's at? That was really fun, and I was surprised by that, and I thought that was delightful. A script edit that I would have suggested making was, so I really liked the idea that when the reveal when he's like, I thought you two looked really comfortable together, like was really a fun moment. I thought the lead into that turn where we see the character's updated point of view, I thought that was a little confusing. It was like when I was in the wardrobe watching it, it took me a little bit to catch up to that. And I think that we could have more effortlessly like set up the idea that he's been stalking her or whatever for a while or something like that, like earlier, so that we understood this quicker. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like the line, the DM.
What kind of kidnapper is he? Like being more specific about everything in your sketches will only help them.
Absolutely. I think that is honestly, that is a like truly, I think maybe the takeaway of the whole episode, honestly, like this, I think the specificity of it feels like it comes up again and again. Speaking of specific, shall we move on to the next one? Okay.
Oh, baby.
The Jules Holland sketch.
Where's Shem?
I know.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Right.
This one,
the time.
This one, this one was interesting to me because I think that so first I was like, I have no idea who this character is, which is fine. Not obviously it has to be for me. I think that one of the jokes made it clear to me this is some sort of like a talk show host character. So I was brought on board, I think correctly, when he, like by the beat when the dad is with him. I think that something that is just funny about this sketch too is like even daylight savings was a different time in the US, right? Like that was a couple of weeks ago. And so there was just something to me that like in a very literal way, it's like, oh, this is such a different base reality that literally time is operating differently in these two countries. I thought there was something kind of like funny and like beautiful about that. But I think that basically to me, I don't understand the sort of like the thing that the sketch seemed to pivot out off of the like if we give him an hour he'll go. There's something about that turn of phrase that seemed important to it and I didn't get it. But then once I sort of like released any need to understand that, it was like, oh, okay, this is like it's like a boogeyman talk show host who comes to kind of hunt you. But the boogeyman also seems to be some character that he has played or a name of a thing he does. I don't know. Anyway, what did you guys think?
I think if I was fully bought in into who Jules Holland was, I think I would have loved this sketch.
Yeah.
This like felt like a wacky thing that I would really like. It's just not a reference that was culturally relevant to me. But I really liked the joke, like, what was it? He's asking you for an anecdote. Doesn't have to be funny. Like, nah, not really.
Not really. I love that. Yeah.
Super funny.
That is funny.
Yeah, I think it was like a really good wacky premise. I get the impression that Jules Holland like reminds you that it's daylight savings in a funny way or something on his show.
He like
I think that's
it did have like a UK.gov thing at the end, so maybe it's like maybe he does like PSAs or something of this.
Yeah, I think it must have come from there.
I saw that there's like a New Year's Eve show that he does, so maybe there's like that is part of.
Oh, and so you have to take the hour back, or you won't match up with him.
Or something.
I don't know. That didn't. I was like, yep, that makes sense. This doesn't bump me at all.
Yeah, but I think that's like I think that in a way there's something useful about this too, where it's like if you are I think the most distracting piece of the sketch, the most distracting about a sketch like this would be if we were like, wait, is this referencing something or not? It was abundantly clear that this was referencing something that we just did not know. And so I think that you can kind of relax and just take what you can out of it when you know that. When you don't know if something is being referenced or not, that's when you're like, your enjoyment brain is just off because you're just like, I don't know what this is. So anyway, I thought that was, at least it was very clear that this was a reference to something we didn't understand. But yeah, it was fun and wacky. Just didn't understand it really.
I felt like I wasn't sure if the fundamental behavior didn't quite work for me because people aren't uptight about doing their clocks. Like famously, people are pretty bad about this.
Yeah.
So maybe it's different in the UK. I don't know, but like it didn't quite track because that's almost the unusual behavior in and of itself is that you are insane about this because people, that coffee machine could be wrong for months. We don't know.
Right. Well, because but I do feel like they were sort of like the character being frenetic about it is sort of because people are lax about it usually, maybe. So maybe it was a way of circling around, but yeah, I know what you mean. I was like, this one was a little harder to ground ourselves in. And frankly, that's great because it's SNL UK and there should be things that we don't understand. And knowing ballpark that this is a talk show host feels like kind of enough to sort of like appreciate the specifics that are made for us without maybe understanding a lot of the other references that are heightened off of it. So I think great example of a sketch to watch if you're just like curious about what it is to be on the completely outside of the sketch when it is not made for you. All right, shall we talk about the next one? This is okay. Oh, Madalyn, I'm curious what you're thinking about this one. This is the film Son Comes Home from the War, but Mom is attracted to the actor.
It's nice to see that people in the UK, writers in the UK, are also not immune to just writing sketches about hot guys or how hot guys are hot. I wrote down literally as soon as it started, ugh, this won't heighten well. And I was correct.
I wrote down tough to heighten this kind of thing.
Well, also, films are famously scripted. So you can't, like, you can't improvise anything, let alone like adding this like sexual thing or it's the mom. It doesn't really even matter. You have to do all the lines that are written and all the blocking that you're told. Like you have to do that. It's like, to be honest, and I hate pitching this, but a better place to set this game would be like an improv class where someone can make up and like maybe we see a lot of people try to insinuate, like put themselves in a romantic scene with Jamie. But again, I don't know if long form improv classes are well known enough Though they were in a Progressive commercial recently, so possible.
I could imagine a variation of this that just gives like a teeny bit more specificity as to why she's attracted to him now. That would like then allow like okay, and
Presumably they've met.
great news. They were able to like finally get the costume refitted. So like he's in the actual costume. So let's go. And it's like like he looks so good in the costume or something like that. I think it's just tough that it's just like one character and him, because it's like there's just a cap to how much heightening you can get out of that. I think we could have invoked the atmosphere and the environment and the other characters a little bit more to heighten it. But yeah, this is a tough one to heighten.
Yeah, and then the end, it didn't really like they're both conventionally attractive women of about the same level of looks. Like, why did he care? Why did he like the other one? It just didn't. Like, okay, we got to end this sketch somehow. Been there, certainly, but
we used to get notes from someone at Vermont Night who once told me that you couldn't make periods funny. So always grain of salt with this advice. But they also told me once that, you can't, attraction isn't unusual ever to anything.
Right.
And so it's just like, there's nothing really like, oh, she's going to kiss him. We all knew that was going to happen. It's simply not funny. You have to have something more to this game. No more hot guys or hot sketches, please.
Yeah, I think that it just needs more specifics, because otherwise it's just going to be,
it needs more specific at the idea level though, because there's no idea. There's no sketch here. It's a whiff of a premise, but it's certainly not a game yet.
Yeah, totally. Nothing. I agree. Nothing unusual. And I think that
I wondered if this one was like maybe a character she does, but it got really lost in translation going into a premise sketch.
Yeah.
Something happened, so there just wasn't really a fully formed idea then. I don't know.
I think that you're right. That I think often we overstate the difference between character and premise sketches. But I think this is one that would have really benefited from sitting down and being like, let's think about this as a character sketch. Like, what is the deal with this character? Like, or alternatively, broadening the premise, and it is just like everybody is tapped in. Everyone's like, okay, we're taking sound. Oh wow, okay. Like we're hearing like the click clacking of the buttons. So I think he needs to take off that jacket maybe, or something like that. Like everybody we're just like a little bit more on board, so there's more stuff. But yeah, I agree. There's just like I think it's a little bit of a flawed setting. Definitely kind of, I think, Madalyn, your way of putting it, like whiff of a premise.
If she like, Ray, this is a good point of view. What if she just like said her POV at some point, like, this is my last movie and I have always wanted to date a co-star, so I'm going for it. Like, okay, you could make that. Just if you would let her say one more line, even you could have found something there. And anything,
and I think that specificity then would open up a whole other world of like what else can be contained by this character's behavior, right? Because I think right now we were just totally resting on the behavior of leaning in for the kiss, which is also a little bit like relying on the host's charm too, or like relying on the fact of the host being there too, and less like clever about the writing or the structure or the overall idea. Anything else that you guys thought about this one? I think this is a really teachable one. I think this is like a good one to watch and learn from, because in theory it like kind of, you can see people going like tee hee hee in rehearsal, but there's just not a ton to hold on to like after the fact of it. All right, awesome. Let's go on to the next one then. We were at a weekend update. So this one didn't really, would you think about the cast member appearance as a sketch? I don't really know if I would probably categorize it as like a character sketch. It was more like a little bit of a stand-up bit to me. What do you think?
I think it was trying to be a desk piece, and I think it failed really badly.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
Are you talking about the holding hands bit or
the fertility expert?
Oh, I was talking about the fertility expert.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think she was supposed to, well, I mean, maybe it is just a stand-up coming out and doing their thing, but it
felt maybe.
It was too, I thought the idea of like talking about why men specifically are difficult to be around right now could be fun, but it just fell into like almost like 1980s. My wife stinks. Oh, men eat gross. Like it wasn't current or specific.
Gay guys are good. Straight guys are bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. They've only, you guys study it closer than I. How many characters are typically on a weekend update in the United States? Like, I feel like
Often
more.
it's
I feel like they've only
two.
really done just two.
Yeah.
Okay. It feels like a bigger part of the show. And maybe
Yeah.
they're not comfortable with this setup for some reason, or maybe they
I feel
should
like
drop that part. I don't
they're
know.
I feel like they tend to be more produced in the US. Like there's like often a big
Hmm.
character or like there's a big costume or something like
Hmm.
that. So I do feel like they've I now I'm even drawing a blank on what they did last time.
It was
Oh no,
the
they did
It was
that
the
captain.
fish
captain, the fish sticks
fish stick
one,
guy. Yeah, so I
Hmm.
guess
which
that's
I
more
thought
in
was
line.
delightful. And Shem was like, "This offends my British sensibilities." But I'm wondering if this is
Maybe,
like a
yeah.
cultural thing, where like coming out
Yeah.
as your own thing in the middle of a group show is maybe kind of like weird, or I don't
Mm.
know.
Hmm.
Yeah, curious to see what the tiebreaker come to the episode 3 does with
Yes.
this. Yeah, but yeah, I think that this one just we'll basically I think we'll probably skip over weekend update then, just because I think that it really felt to me more like unspecific stand up than like uh, sketch, which again is not even necessarily a criticism of it, because I think it's potentially just its own thing that's separate from the structure we're used to for SNL. But I don't think I don't think there's too much to learn about sketch structure from it.
Right.
So we'll move on.
Only thing that was weird, they did the BTS bit again. They did
Wait,
that
I do think that's
twice.
going somewhere, right? I kind of
But
have a
oh
like
feeling it's
BTS is
yeah,
going to
going
be on the
that.
show.
right.
I'm just like, huh, okay, right back to that well. Okay.
Maybe they'll just do it every time.
I guess so at this point. It'd be weird
Completely
if they
forgot
didn't.
about that.
It's
Wow.
a
Yeah. Yeah.
signature
Yeah.
signature part of the show.
Rule 3s. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Or yeah, and then maybe they are planning to have them for the finale or something. That would be great.
Did you guys think the jokes were like shockingly weaker this time?
They were weaker. I agree.
I don't know what
Weaker,
happened.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not just me. Thanks.
No, it was definitely not just you, because they felt very tight last week.
Like they were
This
so
week,
good the first week.
yeah,
Like, I think they're still finding their kind of characterization that they want to do, because Colin Jost and Michael Che pretty much are just themselves. They're not really like doing a character. But in
yeah,
years like Kevin Nealon, when he did it, he kind of was like a weird version of himself. So it changes too.
yes. I think this is kind of an interesting space to watch, where it's just like, well, and I kind of also I'm curious about like thinking about it in terms of how it compares to like the base reality of like a British news show too. Like
Right,
first,
right.
there's some interesting stuff there that I think will be interesting to untangle over time, or read somebody else's like sociology essay about. But yeah, this one, it's funny. This was really interesting, because I do agree the jokes were weaker, and just felt a little bit less like it felt like it was there because that is part of what SNL does. But curious to see what happens with it. So we'll see. All right, let's move on to okay, sketch number 5. This is the factory where they glue down Pret wraps. Okay, yeah, Caitlin, what are you thinking about this one? I feel like you gave a knowing
Just to be
nod.
honest, I didn't, that's like fundamental observation. Like, I know what they mean, but it wasn't like, oh, that thing. Like, it does, like, yeah, that happens, I guess, sometimes. I don't, it doesn't
I
seem like a
didn't
big
know.
part of, I mean, I kind of know what they mean. I can imagine it, but it definitely doesn't seem like something that's plaguing people.
Maybe in the UK, maybe it is. Maybe they have
I
different.
think there's a lot more Prets, right?
There are a lot more Prets. Yeah, I do think, here's what I think is nice, because I do agree, Caitlin. I had the same thing where I was like, oh, this is like a highly specific observation that I don't personally relate to. But I do kind of like and respect that they, at the beginning, I think there's a different way to do it, but that they were like, how at a Pret, the thing falls out of the wrapper. We are the factory that does it. I think there's like a slightly more elegant way to do it. But what I kind of love is that in a sketch, you actually don't need to worry about making the top too elegant. I think this could have been like, maybe like 20% more elegant, and it would have been totally fine. But I think that like, what do we do here? Say it out loud felt like a little funky, but there's a slightly different way into having them say, what we do here. We're the place where we glue the wrappers for the Pret thing or whatever. And that's just our jobs, and we have to, hunker down and do it. I think there is a version that does that. But I do respect having a sketch. In a way, it reminded me of the David Attenborough sketch from last week that like is so narrow in a way that like you have to just tell the audience what it's about. I don't think once it did that, I don't think it was a successful sketch. I think it kind of went plotty mode. I think that it kind of was torn between torn between the observation and maybe like a slightly like Les Mis adjacent parody that didn't really do either thing. And this is where, when we say like one unusual thing, like this is where you're being specific really counts.
Yeah, it does feel with all the love in the world, I do sometimes use the term spank humor because I've directed a lot of terrible spanks at the UCB theater.
And just to clarify, a spank is a show that's like auditioning for a run in the theater for anyone who's unfamiliar.
I've directed many bad ones, many great ones, many bad ones. What I consider a trope of a bad, like newer writer doing like a spank is like I just really like that part of Les Mis, so we got to get that part of that parody in. It's like, no, we don't. We actually don't have to do anything that's not funny. Like we absolutely don't. Or it's like this character has to be named Kaya because my friend Kaya is going to be there. It's like, okay, it's not completely irrelevant to everything we're doing. And that, like, to your point of it being stuck in between being a parrot, it felt like everyone was like, I got to do that character. I got to do that run. So we're doing it. Whether it serves this sketch or not, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
As far as I could tell, there was just one other on-game joke, which was all the polos are melted together in the package.
Yeah.
Right? Like that is a similar observation to like, it's annoying when this is glued like this at Pret. And then the rest of it was Les Mis for no reason. Like I know Les Mis. There's not, and I've been to a Pret-a-Manger. Damn it. But there's no reason to put this with Les Mis. Like Les Mis isn't a labor problem. Right?
No,
like was
really.
It Oliver? Was it Les Mis?
I think that
it had Oliver elements.
This
for sure.
really like reeked of something I would have liked, but it really annoyed me.
Yeah.
I sort of wonder that they had that internet sketch last week that was also sort of unsuccessful and similarly like this is how these bad things start. But I almost wonder if the tone and the location should have been flipped. I think seeing people work on the internet in like just like a industrial 19th century is sort of like funny because they don't have the internet, and then maybe doing the Pret thing with like a more slick 2026 look. I don't think these are home runs either way. I just
I think that's really interesting because I think that my note, Madalyn, to what you were saying before was going to be, I think that really this should have been less about, it's not about labor, it's more about the evil factory that produces it. And the sketch that you mentioned, Caitlin, is totally, that was like the factory behind the internet. And I think that actually I think that's such a great diagnosis here. Like I think that if this were about like what kind of place would devise such devious things is like the fun of then the next time you open your Pret sandwich and it unwraps or whatever and you're like, oh man, like must have been that evil factory. Like that's the hope that that as a writer you hope that people will think that the next time that they go sit down. But like having it be like, reminds me of the labor thing, that it's just like it's a little bit too removed from it. I think that there's a different version of this sketch that could be much more fun.
You can do like a musical sketch about something very small, but there has to be like a reason you're putting them together that's a little bit clearer.
Yeah.
This also brought to mind for me, especially the first time they did it, when John Mulaney comes on SNL and they do like a gross New York musical thing, and then they go through a bunch of like musical numbers. And it's interesting because I'm like, those are so funny because I know those New York specifics so well. But they're also packed with jokes, and this had no jokes. There was only one other joke as far as I remember.
Yeah. I suspect that this one was really meant to be more like a vehicle for an impressive performance.
Yeah.
And I just think that it doesn't have to be either or. Like I think that there is an excellent musical sketch out there that just has more of a game going on and that does explore this like Pret situation in a more grounded way. So it's interesting. I think that this was like it was a little muddied. And I think that sometimes when you have a game that's kind of muddied and it feels like vehicles for a performance, it feels like, oh, this is like, there's something that feels a little more like about it in a way. It's like, you made us watch you perform at your birthday party or something. Like, I don't know, there's a little more indignation that it can kick up sometimes, and it actually like maybe deserves to feel. But I do think that I think that this is one that if a student brought this in, I would be like, okay, so I love that this is such a specifically irksome experience that you have. And I love the idea of like turning this into a sketch, but like, what is another place that we can put it, that we can set it, the fun you're having is with like the smallness of the inconvenience, with like the disproportionate like rage that it brings to you. I think that I would reset this sketch, I think. Yeah. Other thoughts for this one, or shall we move on to the okay, great. Okay, Beans Bros. Madalyn, you're rubbing your hands together. Let's hear it. What are you thinking?
I felt like there was a good sketch in here and they just needed a sketch teacher to fix it.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was very plain to me how you could fix it. So the idea, right, is, but also I'm not sure where I'm American as well. You know,
Right.
there's some, I'm like, because the beans are too funny on their own. It didn't need to be beans. Maybe beans are less funny to English people, but
it's more normalized there. More normalized.
Yeah.
The beans were too funny. Okay. So I think basically like the idea it should have been that it wasn't clear enough is like a food truck or some sort of restaurant where it's like my granny's recipe like did the thing. And yes, she did try to murder a bunch of children, but her recipe was good. Right? Like that should have just been the game, and they could have made that much more clear. It took a very long time to get to that, and I think that like the Bean Bros is a little too weird in and of itself. Like a food truck that is just baked beans is too weird, and it took away from the premise. So by the time the reveal happened, it took too long and was too many unusual things going on for me.
Yeah, I would have liked a tiny justification of why they're saying all this, like just like, yeah, we don't have to tell you that our grandma killed kids, but we want, honesty from, to our customers, whatever, just something like that. Just if it was in there, I missed it. I have to admit, I had to start this sketch over because I found myself just like not paying attention to it.
Yeah.
And then it almost happened again.
Yeah.
Pay attention.
It's interesting in a way. This is interesting. This actually kind of reminds me a little bit of the musical sketch earlier, the British Theme Pub, where it's like the specifics were all very talky specifics. Like they all came instead of like until they got to the beat with like the grandma rehabilitation program or something like that, which felt like a little off game to me, because I think the fun of like trying to promote something while you have a family member who's done something evil. Like I thought that the kind of sub game of like their evil family legacy, like I feel like that was something closer to a sub game that could have been like teased out a little bit more.
If they just cleared it up,
yeah,
it would have been fun. Like there's so many weird specifics. Like she like emptied our savings so she could give us the money to open this truck. Like what? Like just get out the joke first.
Yeah. I think that it just needed, I think you're totally right. It just could have used like some tidying basically to simplify it, because I do think visually, obviously, I think visually it tracked pretty well with a commercial parody, right? But it was just a little hard to follow.
I also think they're like they were pitching the Nana as the investor. Like she's the investor in this company, but just make it be your granny's recipe, because that's the trope. Whereas like my grandma invested in my food truck, that's not a thing.
Right. Yeah, it's like more like, I think that I would ask the writer, like, which part of this is the funniest to you? Is it like more fun to lead it to them like being defensive about it, like apologetic about, like, what is the sort of like point of view vibe? Because I do think the point of view was a little bit lost. As I can't remember which one of you said it, but just like we would have loved to have one thought about like we need to be honest, or like we want to level with you, or like, because there was a brief bit of like it's inconvenient that this is all happening the same week, and like I think that we could have used a little bit more of their attitude around that.
I think
Because it was
the
very
news
split.
could have just come out and they could be like, just because our grandma did this doesn't mean we endorse it.
Yeah.
We did it.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Like, that was a super easy fix.
I wonder too if the ways the grandma was evil could just be actually less specific and less interesting. I wonder, because the whole thing about like a family restaurant is you're sort of selling, we love each other, like this is going to come through the food. And I think for them to have to be like, we didn't have actually a great relationship. You know, I think she could have been diagnosed as a narcissist. Moving on. Like, you know,
Yeah,
I
that's
wonder
really fun.
if, because sometimes it was just so like the hepatitis. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Was that a real thing?
I started trying to
Maybe.
I started trying to look it up, and I looked up the name and hepatitis, and I couldn't find anything. But I
Name
agree.
and
I was like,
hepatitis.
I was so caught on that, like that I was like, oh no, how awful. And then I kind of got
It
distracted,
could
but
totally be true
I-
that it's related to some news
I
story
thought
there,
it
like a
was
news of the weird thing there.
I thought it was true. And so the whole time, I mean, I actually think I probably would, my experience of it was like, this must be true. Oh, this is awful. I feel kind of like weird about this. But I think that they're either way, I think that that's sort of the like the confusion of it is probably part of the problem too, and being hard to
Right.
track. But yeah, Caitlin, I think you're so right that is such a funny piece of this, the like a family recipe, but like you kind of can't talk about that family member because they did a bad thing. Like is really fun. And I think that we just got away from that. And you can see stepping back from that, like the beat of like we're helping other grandmas rehabilitate is like totally different. But you can imagine more on beat games, like on beat moves or on game moves that are maybe like we have a different lovely lady. She was sort of a family member to us, kind of growing up or something. Like you sort of imagine plugging it in a little bit more.
I wonder if it's like, you know, it didn't go 0 to 60 and it didn't quite progress in a logical way either. Like it wasn't like a Connor O'Malley thing where like by the 20th second you're on the fifth idea. Like it just kind of was a no man's land of pacing, I felt.
Yes. I think, and it was interesting because I think one thing it did do well for part of it was moving between the base reality of a commercial and their unusual thing, but then the unusual thing became muddy and then it all became muddy. So you could see a few points where it was like, okay, now back to the regular commercial part. And then that stopped getting I think that you can really see the sketch suffering as the fun part became less and less clear.
Right.
Interesting one to watch though. Like I think genuinely an interesting one. Which brings us actually to our last sketch.
Oh no.
Fascinating.
Plot.
Okay.
If you ever want
Yes.
to understand what a plotty sketch looks like, this is it.
This is it. I think
Right.
this sketch was fascinating from a teaching perspective because, I have so much that I want to say about the sketch, but do either of you guys want to go first? Because
Please.
like
Not at all.
Okay.
Not really.
Okay. Because I think there's something thinking about what is the base reality of a sketch, right? There is a million options, right? You could start with like, guy wants to impress rugby player, right? That's one option. And that's the option that I think they went with. I think the other base reality is like rugby player is used to people saying like, it was just my knee, right? I think that the sketch would have been so much fun if instead of doing this plot of like, he goes into another room, cuts up his balls, tapes them to his chest, and then comes back out and is lying about it as a condition, because a character lying continually is often also a red flag for a sketch because like your character's being coy. If instead the base reality of the sketch was him talking to the rugby player being like, oh my gosh, don't say it's your knee. Everyone always tells it's your knee. And then the guy saying like, no, actually I have scrotus hip doors or whatever it's called. And then the rugby player having to deal with having been kind of shitty about like, oh my gosh, this is like a pretty hideous, like the rugby player having to learn about this like pretty horrifying disease that would absolutely get in the way of your playing rugby, and then teasing out the specifics of like what it means to have this disease. That I think would have been so much fun. I think that the plot of this one just way went off the rails. Like I think that that is really a short film, and I just don't think it could do it. I think it just got really, really lost.
I thought his acting was good in this, I thought.
But also they were no right. I
I
don't
thought he
like saying
committed.
these sentences. They weren't playing the reality of cutting off his
No.
balls at all. And if
No.
you're gonna do it
No.
kind of like that, you have to make it more real. Like if he's gonna like faint in it, then it has to.
Yeah. I think that the point of
I've seen
view,
it so many times that an actor knows the sketch is terrible, but they try anyway, and I admire it so
yeah.
much.
I think that,
Weirdly,
like,
his best effort of the night.
I think that like the
Yeah, I
point
thought
of
so.
view of the characters could also have made a big difference too. Like again, I think my version of this sketch, I think this would be a pretty solid rewrite, is like have the rugby guy kind of feel like an asshole, right? Being like, oh sure, like are you
Mhm.
about to tell me? Yeah, like party, like is it your knee? Oh, is it your elbow that got hurt? Everyone tells me that, blah blah. It's like, no, actually I have a ball chest or whatever. And then living with that would be fun. Like it would be fun. We don't have to watch this, like, because also just like once you have someone who's just cut off their balls and attached them to their chest, like there's sort of only so much heightening you can have. You basically just have a character screaming for
Right.
3 to 4 pages.
And the wife was so weird too.
Yeah. And you're like,
She didn't care.
you cut off the
She was
balls.
like, okay.
So it's like you either go grounded or you don't. You either do, like, you just have to be so much more specific. And this one, I think this one really, really got lost in the sauce. The fun thing is that the guy has balls attached to his chest, not that he's lying to this rugby player, right? I think
Right.
that's I think that there I think that's
I
kind
wonder
of
if they
the
should have done this one when they have an athlete host and have that host be the footballer,
Yeah.
whatever, whoever they get. Just because the it's not like immediate, the status isn't like immediately
Right.
obvious, so they have to explain a lot of that. Whereas if
Right.
it is just like, um, you know, Michael Jordan, you're like, okay, yeah, I get why you'd want to impress Michael Jordan by saying you're good at basketball.
Right.
Like, I get it.
Right. Yeah. This one was
Or just don't do it.
Yeah.
Can you imagine
Just another-
pitching this to
another
Jamie
option.
Dornan in the room and him saying yes? Like that happened. I wonder what the laugh was at the pitch.
Yeah.
I guess maybe they just, I don't know.
Right.
I
think like a
know.
guy
I
who
don't know
cuts
much
off
about
his,
the way it's being created.
I think I've
Like, are they
either
doing the exact same process?
I guess I was assuming they were.
I think that
Mhm,
they
I
did a lot
really-
of like sitting in on SNL US or something like that. I read something where they said that. But I think that like a guy who cuts off his own balls to impress or like so that he doesn't embarrass himself in front of in front of a rugby player, I guess is how I would like package it as tightly as possible. But like that is so plotty. And that was
It is.
it's so plotty. So basically, the difference between a sketch and a short narrative is that a sketch, you are exploring a core, unusual idea, right? And a narrative is that you are following some sort of arc, right? A character arc, a plot arc, some sort of arc where there's some sort of change and transformation. And sketch, you really just don't have time to do that. So you just have to like tidy up your base reality, like make that be like a third of a page, a half of a page, whatever, and then use that as the plank that gets you into the pool, right? The diving board that gets you into the pool. This sketch suffered for having a really long plotty walk and not really having beats that it could sustain.
Yeah,
I
it's so
will
funny. Don't you
say-
find with sorry.
No, Caitlin.
I was just gonna say, as teachers, don't you find that I feel like most students pick up what you just said, like within the first few weeks, they get it. But there'll always be like one student that just clings to the plot so
Yeah.
hard. And you can even see them intellectually understand
Right.
it by the end of the class, but they still want to be like, and then they lived happily. It's like, stop.
Right. Yes.
Stop.
Yeah.
Later on in my own sketch career, I felt myself just writing plotty things, but that's how I was like, I gotta write story. I'm too
That's
interested
so
in
funny.
this other thing.
Yeah.
One thing I will say for the balls sketch is you could show the balls on TV in a way I don't think you could in America. So
That is
That
probably
was
true.
fun.
That is probably true. Yeah. That was I think that the thing that bums me out about this one is one that like, if a student brings it in, it's a sketch that you can, depending on who writes it, you can be very well inoculated against feedback for it, because you can be like, oh, too messed up. And it's like, no. It's not that it's
We're
too messed
fine
up.
with ball stuff.
Totally fine with the ball stuff. It just, you have to make it something that is play. You have to play with the balls.
Gotta play with
You have to
balls.
make it playable. You have to make it playable. And this is just like not the version of it. So again, the problem is not that it was
It's so
gross, not
funny.
that it's just that it takes too much time to go through the plot, and then there's nothing to do once you get there. So I think this was a really interesting one from a teaching standpoint. And I hope if you watched it, you can see some of the like the fun's kind of left on the table when you have to take the time to watch him go into the other room, come back, have the balls cut off. Is that explain it to his what? But like it's just so much is happening there, and it just took way too long. Yeah,
I wonder if it was his idea.
I mean, if it was,
That's
more
almost
power
the
to him,
only
you
thing
know?
that like makes sense to me. If like he
Yeah.
really wanted to do it and they felt pressured to do it.
I like that version of the story. Let's say that was it. I hope.
Maybe he loved performing it and it was all worth it.
I thought he seemed to love performing it, so I hope that was the case.
Yay.
But yeah, awesome.
Jamie,
And that's the end of our episode. So thank you guys so much for chatting about it. Before we go, I would love to hear if there's anything that you would like to plug. So Madalyn, let's start with you.
Yeah.
I do story coaching. I love stories. Plot is my forte. So if you have anything you're working on, a screenplay, a pilot, a novel, short stories, anything, anything, I would love to help you. And you can find my info on my Substack.
Yay, awesome. And how about you, Caitlin? Anything to plug?
I am the director and head writer of As Sketch at
yes.
UCB. Last Saturday of every month. I don't know why the word month was hard to think of. Hopefully we'll have you two join us at some point, but we have
Yes.
all the UCB's top writers and performers, and it's super funny.
Yes, awesome. Definitely check out Ask Sketch. It's really a fun
I can't wait to
show.
do it when my baby is a toddler.
Yay.
Yay. Awesome. And my plug, as usual, is just that I'm working on this book, Unusual Things, a guide to sketch comedy for writers, fans, and everyone else. So if you are interested in it, and if you have fellow sketch nerds who you think would be interested in it, please spread the word about this Substack and about the Instagram so that we can show publishers that there is interest and spread the word and help fellow sketch nerds learn about sketch. Guys, thank you so much for being here today. This was so much fun. And I'm excited to just chat more about sketch with you in general.
Yay.
All right. Bye, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.